So let's talk about the patch notes themselves. I linked them in the chat if you want to take a look and refresh yourself on exactly what is in the patch notes. I'd like to get one thing highlighted from each of you. If there was one thing that you really took away from these patch notes, we saw small buffs to the flashes for Breach and Phoenix, a little bit of a nerf for Killjoy in terms of radius for her abilities remaining active, a change to the economy system. What really stuck out for you, Tyler? Let's start with you on this one.
Leave Killjoy alone, Riot. Just leave Killjoy alone. I feel like Riot has this like attitude of like, we must punish the Sentinels. We must punish our defensive agents, and we must make them worse and worse and worse. And we saw Osage. Oh, Sage, how we remember you so fondly.
Where is she?
Oh, we remember
who are you talking about?
Who? Remember Sage, old great Sage, the former hero, the 100% pick rate agent at the start of the game in all competitive levels, and how every patch they just kind of paper cut, and then after like a few patches, they just took a sword to her and just sliced her in half, Arda and Emily. They just destroyed my girl Sage, and it feels like they're doing the same thing to Killjoy, where it's like every patch is like tick, tick, tick. Let's just get paper cut after paper cut, make her more and more irrelevant. Even when she's not an overly picked agent in the competitive scene, I don't believe she's an overly picked character in either the general like casual audience or in competitive play. I think she's in a perfect spot, honestly. So just leave her alone. Leave my Sentinel girls alone, right? Leave Killjoy alone. I know she's a bit cringy. I know she's a bit annoying. I know her ult is she's not the most fun character to play against, but let's leave her as she is. She's not that oppressive. I think she's fine. I think she's in a fine place. Look more. How is Jet getting away with all this? How is Killjoy still getting paper cuts while Jet's over there flying at 1,000,000 miles per hour, still, no scoping people on the operator? Come on now.
So that actually piggybacks right into what I'm going to talk about, because the answer to that is casual play. I think because I want to bring up Breach, because I think Riot has had a really difficult time trying to figure out what to do with Breach, because he's so great in competitive. Like the fact that he is receiving buffs still on top of what they did to flashes, just overall with the degradation happens later, so you're basically full flashed for longer. Like Breach is now like insane in my opinion. Like he's so good, and I think the reason is because they're still seeing the pick rate in solo queue, and they're like, he's not getting picked enough. And my concerns initially when talking to the developers about Stage were that they were going to really heavily rely on like solo queue pick rates to try to decide what to do. And I think Breach and all of the issues that they've had, because he's so heavily reliant, his kit's so heavily reliant on communicating with your teammates and actually talking to them and coordinating with them to set up on sites and approach sites. I think they've really, really struggled. Like, I think Breach is actually the agent that they've struggled with the most in terms of trying to find like a sweet spot for him. And, in the process of that, we've just seen him be absolutely nutty and competitive. So I think the fact that Breach is receiving buffs is actually kind of hilarious to me from a competitive context. I understand why it's happening, but it points out the age-old esports struggle of how do we balance this game for casuals versus how do we balance this game for competitive, even in a game like Valorant, where they've really tried to stress that this is a competitive game, like Tyler alluded to earlier, where we want people to be into esports. We want people to be into like tactical competition from the get-go, even in their solo queue games. That is something that I think they still struggled with, and Breach kind of is the microcosm of that. The Cypher nerf is kind of interesting because I think it changes the way he plays, but I don't think it will change his pick rate all that much.
Right, when he dies, then all of his abilities are now deactivated. The
Yeah.
tripwire is gone, the camera is gone, and they get noticed by the enemy as well, so that you can kind of get a little bit of intel on where you were being seen.
Yeah, and basically it has to change the way you play, right? Because if your Cypher dies early, then you suddenly have to like adjust in the moment. You have to adjust your approach in the moment if you're I mean especially on attack. If you're the attacking team. Like suddenly if you're setting up flank position, or you suddenly have to worry about the opponents turning around and flanking you if your Cypher gets picked off early. So I'm like, I don't want to say like, oh, I hate this yet. I want to see how it plays. I want to see how people adjust to it. Initially, when it came out, I wasn't a huge fan though.
I also want to bring up, most importantly, maybe the most important thing in this entire patch is that no longer, if you die to the spike, your KDA will now stay intact. So, as a true KDA player, who loves my stats, who loves to look at my KD and feel proud of myself to be over that 1.0 KD rank, I am so happy that finally I don't have to die to the stupid bomb radius. Gone, don't care, doesn't matter my KDA anymore. It's whatever. I'm good.
I had one magnificent round in my entire Valorant career where I got an ace and Sage used her ult to res one of the opponents. I got them too, but then I died to my own spike, so I got a 7-kill round. So like that's gone now. It's like I had this mythical round that I can talk about for years and years to come and be like, I remember the days when I could get a 7-kill round. Those were the days.